It's been, Gary, gosh, it's been 3 or 4 years since I've last done this. It was the first time I did this. It was very important, very powerful. Glad I did it. And it was brutal. Brutal in
we had some smoke coming out of your ear.
Exactly.
It stink, doesn't it?
Exactly. It really takes work to go, oh wow, as we, identify these values and then we start pitting them against each other. They're like, okay, is that your top value over this one or not? It's just hard and interesting and wonderful and all of those things. Any successful relationship starts with finding your center, the truth at the core of who you are. Only then can you develop the ability to truly connect with someone else. Concentric is about aligning with people who share a common center. This show gives you the tools and the skills to do just that through practical training, real-life stories and examples, and in-depth interviews with people who have taken this journey and come out the other side better for it. Welcome to Concentric. We're glad you're here. Welcome to episode 6 of Concentric. This is our second in a 3-part series around values. If you haven't checked out episode 5, I encourage you to do so. It really sets the stage and the context around what we're talking about here. The incredibly important aspect of identifying your values. And in this episode, I dig in, right? I go through this process. I did it several years ago, but as we talked about in episode 5, your values often evolve and change either dramatically or subtle shifts as you enter different stages of life, as you have new experiences. And it was really eye-opening to go through this process again with Gary, as difficult as it can be, certainly. And you'll see what I'm talking about, just because it's asking some of the tough questions, right? But on the other side of it, it's so valuable, so insightful to have this information. Like, oh, that's why I'm frustrated here, or I don't get along with this person here, or I do get along with this person because they're aligning with my values, or I'm frustrated here because I'm fighting my own values. So this episode digs in deep and gives you some insight on how you can do the exact same thing. All right, let's jump in. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Concentric. I'm your host, Jason Croft, with your host, Gary Day Rodriguez.
Hey, Jason. How are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm wonderful. I'm ready to put myself through some pain. Good pain.
No, it's joy, Jason. It's joy.
That's what I meant. Did I say pain? Did I say pain?
Yeah.
If you haven't checked out the last episode of Concentric, do that. This is the second in a series of 3 episodes around values, and they're so foundational and core to everything that we do in life, but also everything we're going to talk about moving forward with this show. And so we thought it was very important to tackle this subject early and convey this, and also share with you how you can dig in and identify your own top 5 values, what's guiding you through life, be purposeful with that, and then do everything you can to stay in alignment with those values. And we also mentioned in the last episode that, these are things that change and shift and evolve over time. So it's good to do these every, at least every year, I would say. And it's been, Gary, gosh, it's been 3 or 4 years since I've last done this. It was the first time I did this. And I tell people about that experience because it was very important, very powerful. Glad I did it. And it was brutal in
we had some smoke coming out of your ear.
Exactly.
It stink, doesn't it?
Exactly. And that's where the hard part comes in. It's not, this isn't, you're battling your inner demons and all of that necessarily kind of hard. We'll get there later. But it really takes work to go, oh wow, as we, identify these values and then we start pitting them against each other. They're like, okay, is that your top value over this one or not? It's just hard and interesting and wonderful and all of those things. So we did a little, pre-work before this. We'll put some of these up on screen. So as Gary walks people through this, we kind of start with, and we'll put this up on screen. If you're listening to the show, I'll read some of mine, but you can also check out the video version of this episode for some of the things that we have on screen. But Gary, kind of walk us through that first list of values, of 50 or 100 that we kind of throw out there.
Yeah, anyone, and our whole intent is for us to be able to provide tools that are really going to help people. And the tools that we'll be working with and talking about are really tools that I found really worked in the laboratory. I can't even remember how many clients I've seen now, but it's above 11,600 clients worldwide in my career. And these are the tools that actually created change in the laboratory of all of those sessions. So they're tried, they're tested, they're well fueled and validated. And what we do now is you can go to the internet, you can just Google values, and there'll be lists and lists and lists and values. So take a large list and distill that large list down to 20 top values, which you've already done. And for the sake of the condensing our show, I had you go through prior to the show and condense the 20 down to 10. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with those 10. And the reason is we want to show people how to do a process of contrasting values and then how to think about values so that when they sit down to do it on your own and people are looking at, I'm going to sit down at my kitchen table this morning, I'm going to do this process, I'm going to come up with really what my top 5 are. The whole intent and the whole purpose for operating from your top 5 is that you become stronger, your self-esteem begins to rise, and your self-worth begins to deepen by aligning your word, your thought, and your actions to your top 5 values. Most people are completely unaware of what the top 5 values are for them because they are deeply unconscious. And we don't really sit down and think, what are the foundational principles that anchor me to me? Like, who am I and how do I show up in the world? And what qualities in my character do I desire to be the most foundational and the most pronounced qualities in my character that I am going to take to the world and my relationships within the world? Because, well, I might as well do this because I always quote this one quote from the Dhammapada from Buddha. And Buddha said that the thought manifests as the word manifests as the deed. The deed turns into habit. The habits harden into character. So watch your thought and your words with care and let it spring from concern for all living things. For as a shadow follows the body, as we think and as we speak, so we become. So if we're going to manage our thinking and manage our language, therefore manage our emotions which drive the behaviors, turn the habit that harden into character, if we're going to be that individual in a relationship that is going to be sustainable, long-term, unconditionally loving, we had better get our own internal house together. And this is the way we do it, to build our own sense of self. Every single one of us is unique unto ourselves. We are here to do something that no one else can do but us fully realized individually to whatever our life cycles are and our life path is. And this is one of the most important beginning steps is the values. So
and this is so powerful because that misalignment is the cause of so much pain, right, around values when we haven't identified those. And it can go one of two ways, right? So you could be, your top value that you haven't realized could be, honestly, work and providing and having a stable income. But you haven't really identified that, and you're trying to build this relationship more and keep your kids a priority. But then so your work is suffering because of that, and that's out of alignment. So then your relationship with your kids actually suffers because you're angry at yourself and you're showing up this way because you haven't provided, because your value from wherever that has come from is, first, you provide a stable income, and it's, this and this. But the exact opposite could be true as well, that really your deep value is kids and being a father and being a mother, being there for them. But society, whatever that is, you may have this thing that you're working all the time because you think that's the thing, right? And so you're living out of value, out of alignment there. Whereas if you just dropped that and go, okay, we'll get that figured out, but that's right. This is my priority. Let me focus on that. Let me operate through life with this. So there's a couple of ways that this really benefits you and is so eye-opening, that allows you to now go in the direction that you're meant to go according to your own thing. The whole point of those examples too is to say, this isn't judgment about what your values are. This is about living in alignment with yourself and being honest with yourself of what those are.
Absolutely. Let's begin. So
awesome.
We have your 10.
And I'll do this for the folks listening really quickly. And we'll have again, if you want to check these out on the video version of this on YouTube, feel free to look that up. But I'll read through my top 20 that I came up with to give people also context of what we're talking about when we say values as well. My top 20 that I identified: love, joy, children, financial freedom, communication, emotional intelligence, connection, innovative, adventure, integrity, happiness, creativity, health, freedom, flexibility, order, meaning everything, so all in place, self-reliance, appearance, spirituality, and beauty. So those are my top 20. And then the painful stuff started a little bit, not too painful yet. It's all good. Going down to 10 as we throw them in the battle cage to fight each other out.
You have some very interesting visual metaphors. You know that, don't you?
I know. I'm making this seem really horrible for people. It's really not. This is fun. I promise. My top 10 now. So as of this moment today, what we've come down to: freedom, creativity, children, integrity, health, love, financial freedom, communication, emotional intelligence, innovative.
Sweet.
And I think I would even say, I don't know. To me, connection and communication. Connection is kind of it's almost interchangeable there to me, because that one.
So this would mean that it's an umbrella value, and we'll just start there so you can get some clarity around that. So is communication more important to you than connection? Is connection more important to you than communication? Or does communication create connection? Or does connection create communication? Which one's more important?
Yeah, that's interesting, because that's what I've identified as something that's so core to everything from business to life is connection, right? That's that blanket term. But
what creates connection?
Exactly. So exactly. And that's what's so, here we go already. Like, that's so interesting, because that's how I connect with just about everyone is through communication, whether it's something like this, interview shows, a phone call, in person, sitting across at dinner, it's that communication. And then the being good at that communication is what's really going to create that connection, right? Like both sides of it, listening, saying, getting my point across, both of those things back and forth. So that makes, I guess, my top 10 accurate on that, to have communication in there and not have connection in there.
Because it does seem like communication is a prerequisite for connection.
Yeah.
And not that connection isn't important, but I think the communication, if you were to look at both of them, you couldn't obtain connection without the communication piece. So communication actually is the precursor to the connection and presupposes connection through your ability to value communication. Is that true or not?
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Certainly the way, and again, this is the way I do it. So for somebody else out there, like, I just need to sit next to someone, and that's connection. And so that might be something for them, right? And that's yeah. So even though we're still in the top 10, this is exactly the process that Gary was talking about, kind of going through as we whittle down now from 10 to 5.
Right. And so we'll put some more structure around it, and we'll do it a bit more sequentially and flow through these.
And we'll do just a few, not to bore everyone here, for all this, but this will give you the idea of exactly how you get to this place.
Yeah, and what we just did, contrasting between communication and connection, is exactly how we do it and how we think about it. Let's begin, shall we, Jason?
Let's do it.
Okay. So Jason's developed his top 10, and let's go for it. So, Jason, is freedom more important to you than creativity? Or is creativity more important than freedom to you?
I think, man, they're both so linked. I would say freedom over creativity. They're certainly very linked in my mind.
Can you explain what that means to you? How are they linked specifically? Is creativity providing you freedom?
Yeah.
Or is freedom providing you creativity? How are they linked?
So I think of it in terms of, I have to do this thing, but I can do it however I want. There's like, be creative. That's a blast to me, right? Is finding the new, how do we do this, whether it's, the art, the marketing, that kind of creativity, but also just an approach to something that no one else has done. Like that's awesome. So as they're linked that way, you have the freedom on how to do something. But that's what that means. Maybe freedom's a little more of a blanket thing to me because I have creativity underneath that.
Yeah.
That's what creativity means to me.
So it seems as if creativity is under the umbrella of freedom.
Yes.
Right. So freedom gets the 1 mark. Okay.
Awesome.
What I mean by that, I'm just putting a number or a little tick mark by freedom each time freedom is more important than the value I'm contrasting it to. And that way we can count up the tick marks at the end of this and get to your top 5.
And again, for anybody who's listening along, you'll get it. You'll get the concept and everything. But certainly if you check out the YouTube version of the show, you can we'll put these on screen for you to see. Yeah.
It'll be awesome. Okay. Is freedom more important to you than children? Or is children more important to you than freedom?
So you're already at the hard ones. You're at the hard ones already. Because you know me and my boys are my world. And that's why I put children down. Maybe and again, this is different for different people, but it's not the idea of children or this role or this. It's specifically my boys and what they mean to me. Yeah, and I know you'll get. I know because you've done this to me before, but You'll show me how I'm wrong, but
I'll show you how you're right.
um, right now, I would say children over freedom. If it was one, if it's your kids can be your priority, or freedom to do whatever the heck you want is your priority. I would say my boys, and making sure they're taken care of, and then I'm with them, and then we have this relationship.
Okay, I always like to go to the extremes so
I
that
know.
I know, but it really puts you then into a context that you can think about it, which sometimes brings a lot more clarity.
Right.
So, say you and your children are in a bamboo cage, 24 feet by 24 feet for the rest of your lives. So you've got your kids, but you don't have freedom, or you have total freedom to roam the world and do whatever your life desires to do, but you don't have your boys. Which one would be more important to you?
Oh my gosh. See? So for everyone out there, when I alluded to this is the hard work, this is the this is the digging in, especially talking at these extremes. And of course, Gary does this with exactly what he has in mind is, really pitting those to get against each other.
Just to get you the real clarity.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking a cage, and my boys are in that cage, or even if, I guess another extreme would be, am I sitting in that cage? Boys are free. They can do whatever they want. There's a relationship. They see me. We're, this and that. Or I'm free and don't have my boys. That's tough.
So think about it in the way that, like what you just said, you're in a cage, but your boys are free. You gave yourself a bit of an out there, which is fine. I just want you to think about it in the most extreme way so that you really work through this.
Well, yeah, and I think I was making it harder on myself, not giving myself a way out. Because if it's my boys are in a cage, well, no, I would never in a million years put them through that. But if they're fine, but I've got to be in the cage, that's what actually makes it harder. And in that scenario, I think I put kids first, and then before you even say it, Gary, I know where you're gonna go with it. It's just like, all right, but then in 10 years when your kids aren't really around that much, they're living their own lives, and you're sitting in the cage, right? Am I mind reader, Gary?
Well, I could go there. I have a certain level of compassion for you right now. But you're already thinking it through, because we've done this before. You're already thinking it through. So really, you're looking at the actualization and the freedom of what you can and could create, or the relationship with your boys. Now, both are super important to you. And you don't give up anything, but in the values contrasting, it's about you coming up with really like, what is the ultimate value that drives me?
Right. And being someone, and this is where, both a long-term perspective, and me showing up as who I truly am and my best self, I feel is best for my boys. I would put freedom above that, because if locked in a cage dad wouldn't be me. What am I going to give to them? Because we aren't choosing, I'm never going to see them again, or I'm in a cage next to them. But putting those two things together, and some people wouldn't. Some people are just like, doesn't matter to me. My life doesn't mean anything. their priority, period. And again, different phases of life, maybe you do that if they're one and you're presented with this and they're not going to survive without that. That's a different animal and stuff. But I think I put freedom above it because it is so core to me, this how I go through life and how I approach life.
So freedom then wins. Is that
so.
true? Okay, good. There's no right or wrong answers to this, but it's about sitting down and really figuring out what it is that drives me at the intrinsic core of me. And if we don't ask ourselves these harder questions and think through these more difficult scenarios, then we end up having less concrete values at the end of the day. And what we want is concrete values to drive our life. So is freedom more important than integrity, or is integrity more important than freedom? So you're absolutely free. I'm going to do some radical contrasting. You're absolutely free, but you have minimal integrity, or you have massive integrity and you're not free. Which one's more important to you, freedom or integrity?
You got to start with the hard stuff right at the beginning.
I picked out two hard ones for you.
Man.
Just because I thought people would like to see you squirm.
Exactly. You're just a bully at this point. This is.
But these are the important things to figure out about ourselves.
For sure. And
so,
and integrity is super insanely high for me. But if I was the most integral person in the world, but locked in a room or even locked into a life and a schedule and you have to do this and this, I don't know there'd be a point to living. Like, I think I would put freedom over integrity. So
let me just have you think about it in another way, so we get more of a dimensional perspective. So then what you're saying is that at this moment, you would prefer to be free, but act with no integrity in that freedom.
Man, as such an honest person, it's tough to say, but I think yes, because the opposite. I couldn't imagine zero freedom.
Yeah.
But hey, he's a good chap, So yeah. Already, right off the bat, we've lost the audience. They're like, this guy is a complete degenerate, selfish.
So I'm going to throw another spin on it just so that you can look at it from another angle again.
Okay.
So we're really close that freedom's it, right? Okay. So here's a couple other ways to think about it and consider it. And I just want you to just really dig in and really look at it from all angles. So then if I heard you right now, freedom is more important than integrity. And my next question to you is, how much freedom do you have? You're talking about physical freedom. I'm going to have you think about it as emotional freedom, spiritual freedom, and psychological freedom. So if you had no integrity and you chose freedom and you looked at it from all of those different perspectives about what freedom actually is, and then the other side of that coin is, could you learn integrity if you were free to experience life?
Yeah, for sure.
So there's two opposites that I just gave you. Mm-hmm. So I want you to just look at it from all those facets and just see which one's more important, freedom or integrity.
And of course, we're talking in extremes here, but this helps anchor those things in. And it's a great point on that first example, because, if you're are you emotionally and mentally free if you're hiding from everyone, or doing shady things, and you're this and you're that? Like, are you actually free?
Or living with your own conscience,
Yeah. Yeah. But especially based on that second one of, true freedom. Yeah. I think I still go freedom.
Great. Now, you've thought that out in like 4 or 5 different perspectives of looking at. And this is exactly kind of the process of how we want to think about the values to really arrive at our true top 5. The reason that we want to do this much thinking about it is because these will be the values that drive our life. And I will absolutely guarantee you, whether it's addiction. I work a lot with addiction. And one of the things that always happens is when people are numbing themselves with alcohol or cocaine or drugs or anything like that, it's they are so misaligned to their deepest held values, so misaligned that nothing in that behavior of addiction is aligned to anything they deeply, profoundly care about. And because shame drives all addiction, the more people act out of those top 5, the more shame they create for themselves there. And that's the fuel that drives addiction. So it ends up being something that just feeds on itself. And people have a really difficult time breaking out of that addiction cycle. But it's not so much the behavioral addiction cycle. It is I guess it is the behavioral addiction cycle, but it's doing things that are so misaligned to what they deeply in their soul, in their heart, in their mind actually really care about. And they are betraying themselves. Therefore, they punish themselves. And they don't want themselves to win. So this becomes a place where we really have to figure this out, because so much of what happens that's self-sabotaging for people is birthed from a misalignment to your top 5. Now, is freedom more important to you than health, or is health more important to you than freedom?
Health's a big one. Health. I think health wins in this scenario, because what are you going to do with all the freedom and time in the world if you don't have your health?
Yeah. So what we do now is we have them in a list of 1 through 10. There was freedom, creativity, and children and integrity. So freedom beat out or won over creativity, children, and integrity. Now health has usurped freedom. So we have 3 marks on freedom because it won over those 3 other values. But now that health has won over freedom, we give 4 marks to health.
Got it.
And then we start contrasting health to the other values.
Hey, I just wanted to pop in here, kind of edit this part in, simply because for the sake of time, we didn't want to make you sit through all of the contrasting. It takes a little while. It takes a good, 20, 30 minutes as we go, one value against the other. Sometimes those hit. So what I'll do here now with this edit is sort of jump to a couple of different sections where I did have some of those moments of, wow, this was my initial reaction, but here's what, if I really think about it, this was a little harder to choose between the two, and some extra insights that Gary had along the way as we went.
Is freedom more important to you than financial freedom, or is financial freedom more important to you than freedom?
And I know this is a tough one with, they go hand in hand. For me, they certainly, financial freedom leads to freedom. They aren't exactly the same, because if I had all the money in the world, but I was anchored into was getting it a certain way or locked into a schedule a certain way, and then didn't have my freedom over what I did through my life. I think freedom wins on that one too, as close as those are.
Okay, very good. Is freedom more important to you than communication, or is communication more important to you than freedom?
That's another tough one, because relationships, communication, that's everything in life. So I don't want to blow past that, because that is life. Like, that's why we're here. To me, that's why this show. That's why I do what I do. Right. But like, I don't know. I guess if you're, that's actually a tough, that one's, my initial thing was just a kind of, well, of course, still freedom, but, and again, I have communication, like that's, well, like if I couldn't communicate or connect with anybody, but I had all the freedom in the world.
You're already contrasting in your thoughts, which is really good, because I was just going to help you out and contrast them, but you just did it for yourself, which is awesome. So if you look at it from that contrast, which one would be more important to you?
I would actually have to say communication over freedom, because even if, locked into a space, locked into a life, but I had that connection, like that, to me, that's why we're here. That's so foundational to my core. I think communication over freedom.
Is communication
interesting?
I know. You didn't expect that, did you? Is communication more important to you than emotional intelligence, or is emotional intelligence more important?
So that's another one that they're so linked, because that's how you can really connect, is if you have that emotional intelligence. I pride myself on that, of picking up and inferring and understanding that other person, and then operating from that place.
So is emotional intelligence a prerequisite for effective communication and connection? Or is communication a prerequisite for emotional intelligence?
So you could have communication, connection, and not be emotionally intelligent. You wouldn't be as good, but it could exist. You could have emotional intelligence, understand other people all day long, but not have a real connection or be able to communicate with them. So I think communication wins in that scenario.
Okay. Is communication more important than being innovative?
Yes.
Let's continue. Since connection was such a huge part for you, and emotional intelligence was a vital part of that equation of communication, I'm gonna launch over, and I'm gonna go and talk to you about emotional intelligence and start contrasting those. When you're doing this for yourself, or even for another person, you always notice where the person struggles, on what value they struggle on, and seem to have like, oh God, I don't know, this really rough for me. Take that one and then start contrasting the rest. Okay? Because especially when you have them distilled down to number 10, you have a short number of values to contrast. So is emotional intelligence more important to you than creativity?
I think creativity above.
Is creativity more important to you than in being innovative? Are they one and the same?
Yeah, those are really similar. Maybe that's a mistake on even a top 10 list, because those are so
close.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to mark off innovative and keep creativity. So we have your top 5, my friend. Number 1 is your health. I'm just counting these up. Number 2 is communication. Number 3 is integrity. Number 4 is freedom. And all I'm doing is adding up the little ticks that I've given each one as one value one over the other. And your 5th value is children. So Jason, when you think about health, communication, integrity, freedom, and your kids, and you look at what each one of those words mean to you, is that you? Does that feel like a resonance of alignment?
It does. And I mean, that's an interesting thing, like to be hit emotionally. Like I can't even tell you why.
I know you have some emotions around these 5 right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. It definitely hits because, again, communication to me is communication, connection, like that human aspect. And in a lot of ways, I can see just immediate, and we can dig into, down the road to this more, but I've been living in alignment with several of these things, with my health recently, just making that a priority with my boys, with so many of these things. It's good. It's empowering to hear that and feel that, and it gives me something that's like, I don't know. It's that North Star anchor point. Like, okay, it is that. My question around why 5 out of all the, that's why. It's to be able to do this.
It focuses. It focuses the mind. It focuses your intentions. It gives you an anchor to reference. If it's not in alignment, when I've done this with past clients, it's like they would say, if it's I now have a reference. If it's not in alignment with these top 5 values, I don't do it. If it's in alignment with those top 5 values, I do it. If integrity is my top 5 value, or one of them, I make sure that everything comes out of my mouth, every business dealing, every conversation, that I do not stretch the truth. I do what I say I'm going to do. I follow through with what I commit to.
Yeah.
And with children, quality time with the kids. It's like a lot of times we are so over-focused on the activities that we have to do to keep our lives, our homes, our kids, all of that running and operating well. But it is the quality mentoring, connection time with the kids that actually feeds their soul. So the bottom line, of course, when you get to the place where you really understand what your top 5 values are, then you can start metering out your time and your energy so that you enrich the activities that demonstrate those top 5, not be derailed.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for doing this. Thank you.
Well, thank you for participating.
And for those listening, watching, this is, you understand now. I think you have the context of my joking in the beginning of the brutal part of this. It's tough to get through. It's, when you're posed with some of these things, and it's absolutely wonderful as well. So thank you all for going through this. I hope this really helps give you all the idea. And in our 3rd episode in this series, next we're going to dig into, great, I've got these. Now what do I do with them? So I look forward to that. Gary, thank you so much. See you all next time.
You're absolutely welcome, my friend. And it was a pleasure working with you. See you. We'll see you at the next episode.
Alrighty. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Concentric. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd certainly like a great review from you on your favorite podcasting platform. But more than that, what really makes a difference to a show like ours is a recommendation to someone who would love this show like you do. Word of mouth referrals to your network and your podcast devouring friends is incredibly helpful to the growth of this show. For episode links and info, go to concentricshow.com. Thank you so much, and remember to keep building alignment to build a better life.